Okay, good. So, good morning, everyone. We will be waiting for a few minutes before we actually start, so that we give some time for people to join. Um,
Hello, Lydia.
Hello. Yes, I see that you were able, Pedro, to join. Sorry, everyone, we were having some issues. Um, I think we can probably start already. We have a good number of attendees. So I would like to then start by welcoming everyone. So thank you for joining us today. This is Ertico City Moonshot organized webinar, and the topic that we are going to be covering today is urban air mobility, and that's why we titled the webinar Navigating the Urban Skies. For those of you that are not familiar with the activity, I will explain it later, but we have done a series of webinars before, and this is, I think, probably the fourth or the fifth one that we have organized. And now I would like to give the floor to my colleague Vasilis Agoridas from the UIC2 initiative, and he will be the moderator for today, and he will also present the agenda.
Thank
So,
you, Lydia.
Vasilis.
And can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Lydia, and hello, everyone. If we could share the slides, please. So, as Lydia mentioned, this is a collaboration between UIC2 and Ertico. This webinar based on the long-term relationship between the two communities. The event today is around the work that Ertico has been doing on the city Moonshot. I suspect most of you know what it is, but in any case, Lydia will explain more. And what we were asked some time ago to contribute to some questions that relate to UEM in this big study. There are different results, and UM is coming as one of the topics. So what we would like to do is to take the perspective, say, to share the perspectives of the cities from the UIC2, but also to combine this with the results from Ertico, which is a bigger study, and see how all of this can go further. I would like to start by a quick introduction to the UIC2, really quick. It will be less than 5 minutes. Typically, when I introduce UIC2, it is more. It is just to give a background so you know what we're talking about. And then we will have Lydia to tell us more about the city Moonshot. And then we have 3 cities from the UIC2 that also contributed to the study of the city Moonshot. We have also Simon from UK, so we can learn also about what is going on from the more national perspective in UK. And then we will have a discussion. We will not take discussions during the presentation in order to keep some flow. Still, you have the chat where you can put any question that comes to your mind, and we will answer and have the discussion after the completion of all the presentations. So without further delaying, let's go to the next slides that are about an introduction to the UIC2. As I understand, most of you are not aware of it. Thank you, Lydia. So UIC2 It stands for Urban Air Mobility Initiative Cities Community. It was created in 2017 as part of the European Commission's Smart Cities Marketplace, and since September 2022 is part of the Civitas Initiative. Is one of the communities of the Civitas Initiative by the Commission, which is already a 20-year plus initiative working on sustainable urban mobility. The specific side topic I will very briefly raise here is why should cities and regions consider their engagement and skill development in this emerging sector that you can find it with different names: urban air mobility, innovative aerial services, advanced air mobility, and so on, and how this relates to the work that ETCO has been doing with the city Moonshot. So if we go to the next slide, please. Here you see an overview of the community over the years. We have members at only cities and regions from different countries across Europe. And because of the work we've been doing, have attracted also the interest to partner, not as members, as international partners from Japan and US. And we have a number of knowledge partners with whom we exchange and share knowledge and information, like, for example, from the city's perspective, Polis, of course, Ertico has been one of the long-term partners since the very beginning of the UIC2. If we go to the next slide. So this community is about to bring a different perspective to the discussion of urban air mobility, which is typically technology-driven or purely regulatory, and bring really the perspective of the city from the mobility perspective. This is one of the very first slides we have created at UIC2 in 2017, when we have been discussing what is going on here. Why do we have to consider drones or these future so-called air taxis? And everything coming from the fact that cities don't care for the actual mode that is provided or technologies, they care about mobilities. And one of the key aspects here is the integrated mobility aspects. So we talk about multimodality or intermodality. So please, Lydia, if you click next. So urban air mobility, so the type of drones or air taxis, if we talk more from the mobility perspective, have not been something to consider for many years, because typically what was available, it was the helicopter types. And for many different reasons, helicopters have not been part of this discussion. One more click, please. But over now, it's a decade, we have the electrification of cars, the automotives, all right? And this has been transitioned also to aviation. So we have the emergence of these new vehicles that can also transport passengers, the so-called flying taxis, although many people don't like to talk about this as a flying taxi. The technical term, it is eVTOL, electrical vertical landing and takeoff vehicle. And you can imagine it either as a big drone where you can carry cargo or passengers, or as an electrified type of helicopter. Now, it's about these vehicles, which is for passengers or cargo, but it's also about smaller ones, so the drones, as we know. Perhaps we know them from DJI type drones for cameras and pictures, but we're not talking really for that. We're talking more the commercial and professional uses that can be also for public services. So when we take this perspective, if we have one more click, please. So the motto of the UIC2 from the very beginning was that we're dealing about smart mobility in smart cities. So it's about walk, ride, drive, and fly. And now the fly could be something to consider, but the idea is not to substitute the other modes, is to complement them. So the challenge that local authorities have and transport planners is to really explore what are the aspects of this fly, for whom, for what, when. So if we go to the next slide, please. Here you can see some typical examples of emerging questions that are coming from the citizens and local authorities as we have experienced within the UIC2. One of the first questions is how safe is it to fly at low altitudes above people? And this is fact where all the aviation community, the commission, the regulatory bodies, and all the community have been working to ensure that whatever it happens there, it will be safe and secure, as with any other mode. So when it is to board on a bus or a train, we don't ask if it is safe, we take it as a given, right? So from this perspective, new regulations have been put in place to ensure that we have the high level of standards that are required for an urban environment. If we have one more click, please. Now, the question is, when you take the perspective again of the city, the transportation, we don't challenge the safety. We assume it's there. It's a given, right? It's a prerequisite. So the big question is, in which way this new thing that we can call it urban aviation can help mobility systems, and not only mobility systems, the wider city operations, because we can have these drones, eVTOLs for passengers on transport, but also we can have the drones to support other operations of the cities, like, for example, monitoring of traffic, surveillance for security or other safety reasons, or any different application that a city may believe that having access from the third dimension could be helping its services and what it offers to the citizens. Next, please. And all of these, in fact, have been already regulated. And there are a lot of regulations about drones. One, it is about the implementation of what is called U-space, which is, imagine an airspace above a given area, which is well regulated with advanced technologies in order to ensure that when you fly drones, this is safe. Now, as part of this regulation, a lot of work has to be done for this to be implemented, not only from the technical perspective, but now also from engaging different stakeholders. And as you can see here, if we have one click, there is an article in this regulation, one more please, that talks about the need for the competent authorities in a member state to establish a coordination mechanism in order to ensure that all the different authorities, including at the local level, are involved. One more, please, or two clicks. This brings the concept of what we talk a lot for the people who work in this area, the coordination mechanism of the U-space, which is not about the technical aspects, but also the more socio-political aspects that relate to a new public infrastructure. So in the same way, when you have a new road or a new airport or a new bridge in your city, you have to go through some public consultations with different stakeholders to understand what perhaps could be some concerns you have not considered. This regulation gives the opportunity to consider these aspects that are coming really from the bottom up, not just safety and security, but the wider impact this can have. An impact can be positive or negative in a given area. And as you can see here, there are even from the aviation perspective, some new roles, like the role of the U-space coordinator. This is not a technical role, or new tasks and so on. This is where local authorities, cities and regions have the opportunity, and perhaps, who knows, in the future, even the responsibility and accountability to be part of this, because all of this, it is governed through the concept of multi-level governance, that all the different stakeholders have to be involved. And local authorities are one of these stakeholders. Next, please. This has been already enforced from last year. So now the member states with the competent authorities, in collaboration with the EASA, the European Commission regulator, are working to make it happen in different member states. At the same time, last year, 22, in November, December, we had the publication of the EU's Drone Strategy 2.0. As part of this, one more click, please. In one of the different topic paragraphs that one can find in this document, it is acknowledged clearly the role of the local communities, whether it's a city or a region, in order to have a deciding role in what is going on. So you can see that even from a wider policy perspective, not a very specific regulatory article, the role engagement of the cities is really encouraged. Next, please. At the same time, as we're talking about mobility, it's about considering all the policies and mindset from the mobility. So what we do at UIC2, we took the principles of the sustainable urban mobility planning. I guess many of you are familiar with these pictures already. And we combine this with the experience of some of the leading cities of the UIC2. And we created, if you have one more click, a practitioner briefing on urban air mobility and sustainable urban mobility planning. So this is a guide written by cities for cities or regions. And here we had also the support from Ertico to provide some feedback on the actual document, and thank you very much for that. And I say thank you because what we do as UIC2, we are not a funded project, we are not an association, we're just a community. So everything is based on the voluntarism and time available of everyone. Next, please. So this is almost the final slide. So what we do at UIC2, we have the cities to drive the different type of challenges that are coming, and we try to organize ourselves in task forces to address the topics that come from the intersections of these high-level topics that we identified from the very beginning of the initiative. If you have multiple clicks here, Lydia, please, you can see the different task forces, and with blue, the different outputs we have had so far. I will not go into the detail of that. Of course, if anyone is interested, I can explain in more detail. And as you see, we collaborate with all the different associations or big communities mobility like Ertico. So ultimately, what we want is that really UIC2 is the city-centric platform that can allow the engagement of the local authorities in order to increase their awareness, the skills, and proactively collaborate with other stakeholders from the mobility and aviation domain. If we go to the next one. So all of this, what it shows is it is more than just a technical ecosystem, someone want to do a technology. In fact, it is a socio-political ecosystem, and you have seen that already the policies and regulatory frameworks show that the political and operational engagement of local authorities is important. One recent activity by the European Commission and EASA was to establish the so-called EASA Innovative Air Mobility Hub. This is already a first draft available at the website of EASA, and it will be further augmented. And UIC2 has already contributed with a practitioner briefing that you have seen there, and we have some members like Hamburg, which is also today with us, that has been part of this task force. So we will give more information about that at another instance. So here, this is a rather brief introduction to have a background about what UIC2. And then now Lydia will explain about the work of Ertico on the city Moonshot and why we have been approached some years ago to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vasilis. So I will share my screen if I find my own presentation. Okay, great. So I'm gonna, okay, now. So again, hello everyone. So Ertico City Moonshots, I think that some of you are familiar with the initiative because you participated in it, but some of you might not be. So I will very briefly go over what the initiative is about, and then I will go into the more interesting part, maybe, that is some preliminary results that we have on this topic. So what is the City Moonshot? Oh, now it doesn't want to. Yeah. What are we trying to do with the City Moonshot? So what we are trying to do is to understand the needs and requirements from the cities in relation to their mobility and their transport. But at the end of the day, what we really want is to engage with the cities, have a relationship so that we understand better what they are facing and what their reality is. And how are we doing that? Through a series of interviews. This is a conversation that we have with the cities, usually over an hour conversation. And our target is to reach 300 cities. And as of now, we are at 195 cities and regions that we have interviewed. If we look into the number in the left, so 229, that is the conducted interviews. And why is this bigger? Because we have introduced new topics in the questionnaire, and we wanted to re-interview some of the cities. So that's why that is a bigger number, but we have interviewed 195 cities and conducted 229 interviews. And you can see a spread on the right of the geographical spread. So as you can see, most of the cities that we have interviewed are in Europe, but we have also done a little bit here and there. The 27 is for America and Latin America. Something missing there, but no worries, because now you have a different view. So as I mentioned, the big green is in Europe, but we have a few dots here and there in the map. And why regarding this kind of re-interviewing, new topics, etc. So what we have done is we have two phases. So we have interviewed in the first phase 150 cities, and you can find in the QR code in the screen the report. You can download it there or even in our website. And we have analyzed the data from these 150 cities that we have interviewed and put it in this report. The topics that we covered on this report were basically sustainability, data sharing, and mobility as a service. Of course, we also touch upon citizen engagement and a little bit of introductory questions. And now, in the second phase, we have kept some of the topics that we had previously, and but we have added two new. So we have e-mobility and the one that brings us here, so urban air mobility. These are the two new ones. And now let's go to the interesting, more interesting, because the other part was also interesting part. So preliminary results and a sneak peek. Here a disclaimer in terms of these are preliminary results, first of all. Second, we are talking now about around 70 cities that have answered to the questions regarding urban air mobility. So keep that in mind now that we will go over the results. And here I have only a few questions that we ask on this section. So around, I think 4, but we have more. So this is going to be just, as mentioned, a sneak peek. So one of the first questions that we ask the cities is for their involvement with electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles and or with drones. And as you can see, most of the cities have not done trials, developed a policy, conducted a feasibility study, or have operating systems, but we have some that have, and you will hear from some of them after me. But so we have 11 cities that have conducted trials, 6 that have a policy, 5 that have conducted a feasibility study, and we have 1 that has operating services. I'm not going to say which one due to GDPR, and we promise this when we interview the cities. You can try and guess. I'm not going to say later anything, but you can try and make your best guess. And for other is basically they have initial talks, but haven't really even done a conducted feasibility study. So just to have that in mind. Then the next 2 questions that we ask are based on what would be the purpose of the urban air mobility services for logistics on one hand and people, passengers on the other hand. So starting with the logistics one, here for this question, I would like to keep in mind that it's a multiple choice question, so cities can have these services for more purposes or select them. And also, this is a question that is asked to less city as the ones that do not have any studies, trials, etc. Are not able in most cases to answer this question. So we ask them to the ones that have. So as you can see, most of the cities selected the medical purposes, in a sense, for this type of services. So we have medical equipment selected by 17 cities and medical supplies selected by 16. So with equipment, we talk about like bigger things, for example, the defibrillator, and with medical supplies and samples, we talk about the smaller things like medicines, blood samples, etc. We also see that some of the cities thought that grocery for special cases is a purpose that is relevant. In this case, special cases, we are talking about elderly people, people with reduced mobility, rural areas, so special cases overall. And then we can also see that there are other and groceries in general. I will go over the other now in the next one, because in this case, it's more related to monitoring the city's traffic, especially maybe in this case, city logistics. So in the next one that we talk about people and passenger citizens. So we see that again, the medical purposes are the ones that are most relevant for the cities. But there is also a few cities that see it as some type of a city airport shuttle, metropolitan commuting, or urban mobility. So for the metropolitan commuting, I just want to clarify that this is from city to city, so up to 100 kilometers, and the urban within city, that is up to 20 kilometers. So just to also clarify that. And here in other also very much, let's say, in terms of city monitoring, so monitoring traffic, etc., that other type of service. And if we go to the last one, that is the main concern for developing urban air mobility, we offered 5 options plus other. And as you can see, these are 4 options plus other. So the other one, that is if it will have impact, or the concern is if it has impact on the climate objectives of the city, was not selected by any of the cities. So it is not a concern in this case. But as you can see, the others, mainly the first 3, on the left, are the main concerns that the cities has, and that is safety and security, noise and visual pollution, and privacy and surveillance concerns. As you can see, so 19 cities, 17 and 17. So these are the main concerns that the cities has for developing the type of technology. Here I wanted to specify on other which ones, because I found them interesting. So the first concern that we did not offer, but they mentioned, is congestion. So in a sense, the air traffic that this could develop once it takes off. Then possible use by criminals. So in this case, it's basically mostly related to drugs. And then we have lack of public space to land or take off securely. And the last one is the interaction with nature. How would that be in the future, interacting with animals? And with that, just a small mention that this is not just a survey. As I mentioned, we want to engage with the cities and the regions, and we do more than just interviewing. So this is the webinar that we're doing today. It's an example, but there were other examples in the slides, in the slide. So with that, thank you very much, and back to you, Vasilis.
Thank you, Lydia. And just to clarify, and please confirm, your study is going beyond the European cities, correct?
Yes, that is correct. We do focus in European cities, as we are based in Brussels, but we have interviewed other cities, so it goes indeed beyond Europe.
Okay, thank you. So you got a feeling that it's coming from really a mobility actor that is going to explore this new topic as part of the wider mobility. Let's go directly now to our cities. We have with us 3 cities which are both contributed to this study and also are UIC2 members: La Coruña, Hamburg, and Madrid. So I guess we start first with La Coruña. So the colleagues can share with us. La Coruña is one of the relatively new members to be more active within the UIC2. So I would like to welcome Marta and Enrique. And please, you have the next 10-15 minutes to share your experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasilis.
Thank you very much, Vasilis. We will try to fit the schedule perfectly, so that's fine. So Marta, you can share the presentation. I just want to give a few quick facts about A Coruña, and later Marta will continue on the work that we are doing to transform A Coruña into a real scale scenario for urban air mobility.
But you can see my you can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah. Perfect.
So first of all, I want to thank you for this great initiative. I think it's important that we have a forum where we can express what we are doing and that we can share experience, lesson learned, and of course, um, even to promote activities that we are doing to see if we are in the right path. For that, the idea is, as I said, to give you a quick overview of A Coruña, because I think, you know, we are sitting in Spain, but we are not the best known city in Spain. We always talk about Madrid, Barcelona, Seville, and all nice coast. But A Coruña, if you visit, you can see the landscape just before me. It's a really beautiful city. And then the next part will be just about the human mobility activities that we are carrying out or the approach that we are having to convert the city in that. So just without more delay, let's go with the quick facts. We are a very old city. We are located in the northwest of Spain, just in the corner, and we are a portuary city. We have two ports, one in the interior of the city and one on the exterior of the cities. And the good point or the critical point is we're in a peninsula, which creates some complexity in the way we manage the mobility. Then, we are not a small city. We have over 250,000 citizens just in the city. But if we go to the metropolitan area, so we have over 400,000 citizens, which is a very relevant part. And the idea is that we try to combine different transport and to look after our citizens, creating a green environment. So we consider ourselves, and as you can see the data, we are a green city with more than 10 square meters of green zones per person, and the idea is to continue increasing this number with different initiatives. And apart from that, it's very green because it's difficult the weather of the rest of the Spain. So yeah, it's totally green. Then the other point I want to mention is that we are a multimodal city. Since years ago, we have been working on positioning Coruña as a smart city. We have invested in different projects, and of course, taking into account that mobility is essential. As a portuary city and having an airport in the surroundings, we need to be careful with the way we manage and we plan the different means of transport that we have in the city to be able to integrate everything. The idea is not to replace one with another, but to be able to complement each other. And that's the reason because we are looking after urban air mobility too. The point is we have a train with over 2 million passengers per year. We also have bus, 4.9 million. We have the port, 160,000 passengers per year. The airport, 1.4 passengers per year. And also we have another airport very close to the city and less than 1 hour. That increased the complexity of the area. And we have been able to deploy bikes and of course pedestrian areas all across the city to be able to facilitate that. And what is missing here? As I said before, we are in a great location. You know, we are in a peninsula. We have different sea arms surrounding the city, and in the metropolitan area, sometimes it's difficult to go from one place to another because of the congestion, or even because we need to cross the sea or just border the whole area. And that's the reason because we are looking to the use of drones to be able to add the 3D or the 4D, if you think more about that, into the city. And one thing that we have noticed is we need to have some technical expertise or technical background to be able to be on the loop of all the new developments on the new mobility. And that's the reason because we have partnered with the Technology Center of the city, ITG, to be able to have this insight. And that reason goes, we have invited Marta also that she will provide an overview of the activities that we are doing in urban air mobility. So thank you, Marta. Now the floor is yours.
Thank you, Enrique. So yeah, like he said, I'm just gonna briefly introduce myself first. I'm Marta Tojal, and like Enrique said, I work for ITG. That's the Galician Institute of Technology, and in Spanish, Instituto Tecnológico de Galicia, and that's why we have the ITG. And we are a national technological center. We work on a lot of different topics on R&D. And one of the main ones is urban air mobility and drones. And this is why we're working really closely together with the City Council of A Coruña to just work hand in hand to try to implement urban air mobility into the city. So I thought we could start by sharing our view and our approach. And when I say our, or when I say we, which is something that I'm probably going to do a lot through the presentation, I mean we as in ITG and A Coruña City Council, because we are a team and we're trying to do this together. So if we start with our approach and the vision that we have for urban air mobility in the city, we can start by looking at the technology adoption lifecycle curve. So A Coruña is not an innovator. A Coruña as a city is not coming up with the technology, it's not coming up with the systems, it's not really doing all of those more technical subjects, but that's more for ITG actually. That's something that we do in our daily basis. But what Coruña does is have an early adopter attitude. So this has some risks, of course, to be an early adopter, but it has a lot of benefits. One of the benefits is that you can really go into what's being now innovated, what's the new technology, what's coming up from the technological centers, from the R&D projects, and you can really take a look at it and see, okay, how can we make this work for us? How can we take this technology? How can we take these innovations and adapt it to our city and the things that are interesting for our community, which is something that maybe as a late majority or as a late adopter, you cannot do, because you cannot really shape the technology into the way that you want. You just have to adapt. So this is really something that A Coruña has, and it's working with us, and we're working together with many other parties to make this happen. And it's really one of the main benefits of this. So another benefit of being an early adopter is that you can really prioritize the things that are interesting for you, like I said before. So you can take the technology and think, okay, how are we gonna make this work for us? How can we use urban air mobility in the city in the way that we want? So A Coruña and ITG, we believe that urban air mobility is something that can have a hugely positive impact in society through certain use cases. So when we're looking into the implementation of drones in our cities, at least at this stage now, and this is something that we saw before with Lydia's presentation, so I think it's the same for many of the cities that are here today, we really look into things that are positive for society. So we don't want to use the drones at this moment, at this early stage, for delivering coffee or delivering pizza or delivering the groceries in general, like it said before. But we want to use it for things that are positive for society. So we want to see medical drones, we want to see firefighting use cases, we want to see how we can help the police through surveillance maybe. We want to see the port using drones to make things smoother in this infrastructure in the city. So really just we're taking this approach of high social impact use cases. So the UEM that is implemented in the city is something that is positive and good for our citizens. And again, this is something that we can do because we're early adopters and we can work with the people that we believe can do really good for the city instead of leaving things for the market. And of course, something that we really have in mind at all points when implementing urban air mobility is public acceptance, which is something that I'm sure you're all concerned about. It was also part of the interview that was done by Artico. So this is something that we have in mind in every step of the way, and we really value this. We want to implement urban air mobility in a way that is accepted by society, and this is a tricky subject. It's not easy. Of course, it's a new technology, and as a citizen, if you see something that is new, that you don't really know what can be done, and of course, drones have like a maybe from movies and from war subjects, they have like a not super good reputation, let's say, in some cases. In other cases, it's not the case. But it can be a bit daunting, the topic of drones for the general citizen. So it's something that we have to take care of. And the way that we're trying to do is through a stepped approach. Like I said, we want to implement first high value use cases. And this has a lot of benefits. And one of them is that besides creating positive impact for society, you can also introduce drones to the general public in a way that it's good, and they can see the drones implementing use cases that are good for society. They see that it's not harmful. They see that it's not so, like a problem for daily life. So slowly, by introducing drones in this way, we can integrate it into society in a way that works also for our citizens. But this is not the only way that we're doing it. We're also having public consultations with users, with people, just to make sure that every party that is needed to be in the conversation is always involved. So we really want to take a holistic approach and involve every party that has to be in the conversation in every step of the way. This is, of course, a work in progress, and we're still just trying to make it happen in many different ways. And in this slide, you can see some of the tools that we're using for this. So, of course, we're involved in a lot of R&D projects. And again, I said we as ITG and as A Coruña, because A Coruña as a city is also involved in some of these R&D projects. So we're working on different initiatives, national and international, with many different parties to try to just make things happen in the terms of urban mobility, so different technologies and adoption in society through these projects. We are also trying to build sustainable demand. And what this means is that we are taking a bottom-down approach instead of top-down. So we are going into conversation with different users, with different operators, and we are sitting down together and understanding what's the vision that they have with drones, with urban mobility? What do they want to do? And how can we, as a city council and a technological center, make this happen for them? So we're working with the port of A Coruña, for instance, to implement drones in this infrastructure to just make things smoother in their infrastructure. We're working with hospitals as well, with a network of hospitals in Galicia. Galicia is, by the way, the region where A Coruña is based in Spain. So we're working with a network of hospitals here to implement these first use cases of medical assistance, medical delivery through just Galicia in general, and with many other different parties, just to create this sustainable demand that we want to see in our city. And we are also developing unique infrastructures. So we have, for instance, an artificial intelligence technology center, the national one that is based in Coruña, which is great for us because this is also, as you probably know, a very important part of urban mobility. Urban mobility is not only the drone flying, but it has a lot of things behind it. And one of these things is artificial intelligence to try to automate all of this. So we're working also hand in hand with these guys from the Artificial Intelligence Center to automate all of this and just slowly build up and scale up operations. We also have an ICT city in Coruña. So this is also a work in progress. It's not fully built yet, but the plan is to have a location in Coruña where we have many different companies in just this location to try to innovate in different technological aspects, and one of the main ones is urban mobility and drones. So there are 2 buildings already in this location. One of them is from the University of A Coruña, and the other one is from ITG. And we have there also a laboratory for testing different aspects, energy, and what is important for us and what we're talking about today, also drones and urban mobility. So we have a location there to test and demonstrate flights and drone operations in this kind of closed location. And that's actually what you can see in the picture over there. So that's the box. The box, I don't know if we can call it a box, but you know, that's what we have to test and fly in the city and just start to test these things. And we go there with operators. It's just a very useful sandbox location. And of course, we also do a lot of dissemination and social engagement, which is part of what we were talking before, related to the public acceptance subject. So we do different workshops and meetings and these kind of things to dissemination and communication about urban air mobility and the things that we're working on the projects, and how to introduce this into the public. So we did last June a workshop, an international workshop with a lot of different parties at European level, just to talk about different technological aspects related to urban air mobility, use space, and drones. And we're actually gonna do another one in, I think, in a month or so. Not sure now about the date, but there's a new one coming up, which is specifically targeting operators in Galicia, in our region, to just, again, work on this sustainable demand and tell them what we're working on as a technological center, have also A Coruña as the city, and just see how can we co-create and just cooperate in all of these different subjects and make the city that we want, integrating this fourth dimension of air.
Marta, sorry to interrupt you, Enrique. If you could conclude in the next 2 to 3 minutes.
Yes, sorry, I talk a lot. Okay. I'll be very fast. So here I'll just say we're not doing this alone. I said before a lot of A Coruña as a city and ITG, but we have many other institutions working in our region. We are really working a lot with the University of A Coruña. We also have the Civil UAVs initiative in Galicia, which is a program developed by our region that really finances a lot of R&D that is targeting R&D on drones for Galicia. So things that are specifically going to be implemented in Galicia. We work on R&D projects. One of them is the You Welcome demonstrator. So this is just another R&D project that is trying to implement urban air mobility in different cities in Europe. And we're, of course, part of the UIC2 community. And lastly, I'll just say we've been working on this for a while now, so we already have some lessons learned. Of course, there will be more to come, but we've learned so far is that a lot of the work that has been done so far is on the air. So the vehicle, the systems, all of that has focused a lot on how can we make it fly, how can we make it safe, all of this. But what we have to work on now and we have to focus on at the moment is how can we take these systems now, these innovations, and integrate it into the mobility system that we have in Coruña. So really work on the mobility as a service and just not leave UEM as a separate technology in the city, but really integrate it into A Coruña mobility system. Another thing that we've learned is that local authorities have really difficulties with urban air mobility in general because there's not a lot of knowledge about the subject, fairly so because it's new and, like we said, still in development. So this has been a problem, yeah, in a way. But it's something that we're working on. This is why we're also working with Coruña City Council to try to fill in those situations where maybe they have some lack of experience on the subject. So it's slowly getting better. Something else that we've experienced that we are now trying to change is that sandboxes are not enough. So it's been great. It's been a super useful tool to use these sandboxes like the one that I showed you before from our ITG lab in A Coruña to test these things in a controlled environment. But we have to go now into the next step, which is integrating UEM in the city in a living lab kind of way. So really go from this controlled situation to a more city environment and start to slowly build up urban air mobility in here. And lastly is that until now, drones have been kind of low priority in mobility plans. Of course, it makes sense. It's a new technology. There are a lot of different things that the city councils and municipalities are working on that are more important for the daily life. But it's starting to change. So we're starting to have conversations with the city council, and we're starting to think how in the future we can integrate drones and urban air mobility into the mobility plans. It's still a step into the future, but I think we're slowly working towards that. So yeah, work in progress. And I think this concludes my presentation. I hope I didn't take too long. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Marta. It's okay. It's a learning environment, so we don't. We try as much as we can, so everybody can have the opportunity to speak. Thank you for that. We come later to questions. Just a reminder to our audience: the chat function is not working. You have to use the Q&A to put your questions there, so we can deal with them later. Let's go to our next city. Is the city of Hamburg, which is one of the founding members, in fact, of UIC2, and pioneering in this area by many projects, many activities. A particularity of Hamburg, it is that it is a city-state. So I would like to welcome Francisca with us. Francisca, are you here?
Yes, hello.
If you would like to briefly introduce yourself, and then we can start the presentation about 15 minutes.
Okay, yes, I tried to share the presentation, so let me just
Thank you.
have a second. Can you already see it? I'm not quite sure.
Yes, if you make a full screen.
Yes. Okay. So thank you. Yeah, my name is Franziska Biermann. I'm, as Vasile said, from the city-state of Hamburg. Hamburg is the second largest city in Germany, and it is the city-state. So the
Sorry,
federal.
Francisca, have you put full screen?
Yes, I have.
Because we still see, perhaps you have two screens. We see the other one, but it's okay. Just be aware of that.
And what do you see? You see?
We don't see your presentation mode. We see the working environment. We see your slides, but
That's
on the
interesting. For me, it shows for the presentation just the full screen. I don't know how to do it.
It's okay. Just be aware. Just be aware. You can
Okay,
continue.
thank you. Yeah. So I'm from Hamburg, from the second largest city in Germany, and as Vasile said, it is also a city-state. So Germany, the Federal Republic of Germany, consists of 16 states, and 3 of them are city-states, and Hamburg is one of them. So we have a bit more of a legislative power than other cities have, and of course we try to use it to push the topic. But on the other hand, of course, we want other cities that are not city-states also to gain from our experience and from what we can hopefully reach with our power. So I'm not quite sure. So now I hope you see the second slide. So first of all, let me give you a short overview. So
sorry, we don't see the slide, the second. So perhaps just go to a normal. Don't do presentation. Go to a normal so you have control. So exactly. So now we see it. Go like that.
Yeah, I tried to do it second time. So yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why it does not work.
Maybe instead of on the left upper side, just on the right lower side, there is also presentation mode. It might be also, yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's probably because you have a second screen. If not, just as Vasilis mentioned, work on this one and just move it on the.
Works like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, it's fine. Thank you.
But now you see the second slide or not?
Yes, we see.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. We have a ministry that looks from two views on the drone topic. Sorry, I'm just have to get in my presentation mode. Sorry. So we look at the drone traffic on the one hand of our ministry. That's my colleagues at the Civil Aviation Organization. And more from the industry and application side or innovation side, that's more my part within our ministry. So everything that belongs to question on how to implement it and the legislative questions to work together with our federal ministry in Berlin on transport. So how to shape that legislation is part of my colleagues, and we do a bit more everything that belongs to any kind of question with applications or how to engage in that topic. So the UIC2, for example, our own drone network we have here, and a lot of projects that we have. So these are two views, and we work closely together on that topic here in Hamburg at the ministry. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of activities with where we need lead expertise and where we have that exchange with the government. We have close collaborations with the other part of our ministry, but also with the federal ministries and with industry and academia within our projects. And of course, we have some, as I mentioned, we have some networks, and we are a member of the UIC2, and we have our own drone network where can you give a short insight a bit later on. So why are drones so relevant for a city? So coming from traditional aircraft, the aircrafts are flying just way beyond above our head. So usually we don't care as citizens for planes flying somewhere there above. Only when it comes to starting and landing for a city that has an airport, it becomes a relevant topic, but only for the last, let's say, a few miles, but not usually when they are in the air. So with drones, this is a completely new way of mobility or of transport, because it's just above our heads. So we see the opportunities, we see the new economic perspectives, the industrial perspectives, and the mobility perspective. We see the potential. But
sorry, Francisca, I know you talk for slide 3. If you can move to 3.
Okay, I don't know why. I think I leave that presentation mode and stick to the other one, because I don't know.
Yes,
maybe
exactly.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know why it is. So what you see here is the city of Hamburg. Here you see the airport. So with traditional aircraft, it was just out of our reach or out of our sight. Only when it comes to the airport, it becomes a relevant topic. But with drones, it's just a few meters above our heads. So we need a new kind of law. We need, of course, a new kind of technology. But I think this one is quite mature compared to the right law. And we need what is mentioned before, the kind of acceptance. And this is also quite an important picture for Hamburg, because this is our airport, and the airport is located near the heart of the city. And so most of the city lies within controlled airspace. So this is quite relevant for us, because it makes it much more challenging to fly drones in Hamburg. So we always used to say, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, because it is quite challenging. So what are the applications that we see? So it's especially monitoring, like bridges. Within our port, we need them, like any construction sites. But we also see, of course, medical transportation for goods, and I think in the medium or long run, also for passengers and doctors. So police and fire department will use drones. The craft sector might use drones for roof inspections or something like that. Disaster management, and of course also for adjacent, for not adjacent, but remotely areas like islands or so, with drone traffic will also be a relevant topic. So as a city of Hamburg, we started in 2016 to think about drones. In 2017, we created a network here in Hamburg called Windrove. And then in 2018, we joined the UIC2 community. And after joining the UIC2 community, also other German cities joined that community. And there was a funding scheme from our federal ministry, where we had some projects like the one Medifly with different stages or phases. That is about medical transportation between hospitals, of medical goods like medicine, or of kind of tissue during surgical operation. Then this one had to do with drone detection at airports, so how to detect and maybe avoid them around airports. This was one to the VIA project was about how to shape a UTM system for a city, and all the other projects you see here: U-Space, Hamburg, Louvre, and a new one. I don't know if it is here. Yes, Blue Space. That's Blueprint U-Space. All aim at shaping the UTM system or U-Space system for Hamburg. Blue Space is the latest one. It's Blue Space. It's Blueprint U-Space. So how to implement the European U-Space legislation at Hamburg level. And our last activity here in Hamburg is a drone strategy that will be published, we think, at the end of this year. So we are in the middle of the process, but it needs some time to shape that strategy. So here are some sites for the Hamburg UAM ecosystem. So we have our network Windrove, where we have kind of a triple helix structure. So the public side is in the industry and the research institutions, and we have so they are also kind of a nucleus for our project. So they see for the funding schemes, they will try to push new projects and look for opportunities. The Windrove network now consists of 50, roughly, I think, 50 organizations with manufacturers and so on, and roughly 20 activities like projects. So and networks and events and so on. What is special to that network? It is part of our Hamburg Aviation Network, because Hamburg is third largest industrial site for the aviation industry worldwide. So we have Airbus here, we have Lufthansa Technik, that is the world leading company with respect to maintenance, repair, and overhaul of planes. So we have an aviation industry, and this UAM topic is now as part of our network, our cluster Hamburg Aviation, that we already have. Here's one slide that shows the UAS strategy process, but it's I don't want to bore you with all the details. But I think by the end of the year we will have this strategy. So what is important from our perspective as a city is that we need that legal framework for drones to be really flying and to be implemented in a safe and secure way in the urban environment. The capacity is limited. It is limited by some factors like legal framework, like technology, like infrastructure you need, and you have to pay for, of course, and the social acceptance. And the acceptance is, of course, achieved by balancing the competing interests of companies wanting to operate drones and the citizens in the city. And So we need that kind of balancing, and as a city, we see it as our role that we have to balance that interest. And I think one way is to start with, applications that are in the public interest, and it's, I think, a similar way is like Arunya showed with like medical transport or using drones for fire cases or something like that. Another approach we have as a city, I don't know, since I came in a little late, I don't know if you showed that, Vasilis, is that we created a manifesto for the UIC2
I
cities.
saw, Francisca, the output of this, the articulating effort.
Okay, so so the main idea behind this manifesto is that cities have to play a role, like they do it with car traffic. We are not the ones to give a certification to cars. We are not the ones to set the rules in general, but we are the ones to say, okay, in the end, where are cars allowed to drive in a city and at what speed, and maybe it's about compared to drones, it's more like the weight or the noise. So so we think it's quite a regional task to say to have a say in that, and so that's why we published that manifesto, I think in beginning of 2021, I'm not sure. And so one of the things that happened in the aftermath was the Article 88F that Vasilis mentioned. So that we have a say. So there is a mechanism that member states have to include the local level when implementing drone traffic. And I think this is something quite relevant that we achieved as a city. So as I mentioned, that we have this strategic process here in Hamburg. Before we had we shaped a document together with other authorities and ministries here in Hamburg. So with the one being responsible for ecological aspects, or the one for any what is it, like building and I don't know. So the whole city developments, that's what, and of course the Ministry for Interior. So we didn't get in touch with that, and so we have some few guidelines that are understood for the city of Hamburg. This is that we see drones as an opportunity. We look for drone traffic that is suitable for Hamburg for its for its own situation. We see Hamburg as a development hub, both for the industrial side and for drone services and applications. To support it, we need further research, so we have to include academia. And we have new administrative tasks, and of course we need also the human resources for that. And yeah, what is left? So what are the benefits, but also what are the challenges right now? The benefits of drone traffic are, of course, that it supports and enhances human activities. That it is especially suitable for public tasks like fire department, like medical transport, and there we see a big benefit with respect to time or availability. So in case of fire, drone can do what no human being can do, so flying above that. And of course, we see some challenges, how to control drone traffic. That's a question of capacity, but also of how to implement it with respect to noise and anything else I just mentioned before, how to ensure safe and secure drone traffic, and how to create public acceptance. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Francisca. Despite the technical difficulties, I think you gave a very good overview about your activities. What we see with Hamburg is exactly what it's the core essence of the UIC2. Although UIC2 has as a members only cities, the idea is that the cities create their own local ecosystem for, first of all, exploring for what use cases, what are the benefits for the citizens, which was one of the aspects that Francisca mentioned. And the second one, to us from the more economic development perspective, how to grow the local ecosystem, not only for the economic development, but for engaging all the different stakeholders that are necessary for nurturing the wider societal embracement, as we say. We have seen also from La Coruña so far the importance of making this transition from the ground to the air. This is one of the big challenges we see, and I think both of you highlighted this aspect, and especially La Coruña, which has done a lot of work on the ground. And also both of you mentioned about the acceptance. Now, one of the common characteristics you have, both of you, you have the technology centers, whether it is called ITG or Hamburg Aviation, and the universities that support you. I say this because even if you don't have as a city that, you still can be involved. You don't need, first of all, to like drones to be involved in this community work, because the idea is to put forward your concern, your voice. It's not that you have a technology center to support you. So we'll go to the next presentation, which is from the city of Madrid. And I think Pedro has joined us. And he will give us also this type of example of an initiative of the city itself without having the direct support from a technology center or whatever, but really a city initiative to create what they call in Madrid the UEM Commission. And Pedro, he will explain to us about how Madrid is approaching the topic. And thank you, Pedro, for joining and sharing your experiences with our colleagues here.
Thank you very much, Vasilis. Thank you very much, Coruña, Hamburg. It was very interesting, and I hope you can see my full screen. And well, first of all, I have to congratulate my colleagues from Hamburg and Coruña, and especially I read an article about, or just a piece of information about Marta, just one of the women leading this drone sector, as well as Lydia is doing. So I mean, I need to congratulate you. So Vasilis, shall I go into the presentation?
Yes, please, and we see the full screen, no problem.
Okay, well, let's go for Madrid. First, just a short presentation. We are a 3.3 million inhabitant city, and with more than hundreds of thousands of people sleeping every night as tourists or just as economy visitors. We are the second most populated functional urban area in the European Union, and we are key role in the country's economy. Just the city itself is 12% of total GDP. Including the region, it would increase up to double these numbers. And we belong to 220 corridors, which according to the drone transportation could be very interesting to take into account. Well, first of all, I need to tell you that we have a strategy called Madrid 360, which is including just the city, as you can see, electrification, infrastructure, everything about mobility, where we will be including the drone industry, and about administration, which is also needed to regulate clearly and to make support to the private sector. We also approved a municipal ordinance on sustainable mobility in 2021 that established the creation of an urban air mobility commission within 9 months after the adoption of the EU law. So this is the regulation area where we're working about. I don't know if you have any question, just interrupt me, or you can raise your hand to make it more interactive. It is also important to tell you that the city complies for the second time after 2022 and 2023 with the Air Quality European Directive, which is also something to consider with the electrification of the fleet, bus fleet, car fleet, and also including the drones, which they are happily non-pollutant. So we have some better values of just NO2, which is something we are working by all means with all means of transportation, and we need to include the drone transportation for the future, which is helping us to make better air quality. We have some mobility priorities for the next years. As I was telling you, the zero emission vehicles, where we have in the drones, designing safe and inclusive streets and spaces, where we have to be taking care of the drone industry, guiding urban mobility innovation, which is something that we need the private sector, but we also need to be there as administration, connection with other cities and with the local economy, and promoting the concept of mobility as a road. We have some use cases that have been already been talked, which is one of the key uses is our local police department, which in Madrid and Barcelona they have as competence almost as good as the national police. So anything related to security, surveillance, it is much cheaper than a helicopter, which was used before, and they can reach areas at night where it was not possible before. And this is so good, not just to control any problem that we're having, like a fire, but also like searching for something that could be lost in a river, anything like that. Especially, as you can see, we can have a night surveillance and just to be discreet, and this is working so good. But to make people think and believe the drone industry is just going there, not just seen on the Dubai or China, we made the largest drone show ever organized in Spain, which took place October 13 last year. As you can see, so many thousand people were gathering and experienced this atmosphere. So between those two aspects, that's what we want to focus on the future of drone. We have some pilot projects, and as you can see, this one in April 2021, we have in the district of Villaverde, one in the southern Spain, the first one controlled mobility environment. And we were doing some tests to carry out within the rooftops. And that's a kind of idea to deliver some package. That was also controlled by the 5G technology, not only directly with the gadget scope to the drone, but also getting to with the first 5G technology. So that was the real first application to be done in Madrid, in Spain, and kind of a new technology made that was working. So we are trying to consolidate as a pioneer city using these innovative technologies. Another pilot project was called Alehop within the La Paz University Hospital, which is, I would say, the most popular hospital in Madrid and one of the most popular in Spain, transporting medical supplies with drones within hospitals. So that was with the help of these 4 enterprises that you can see here. And this was the kind of the picture of some technology that is hundreds of times faster than what we could use with an ambulance or any fast car. Not only fast, cheap, and direct, avoiding any kind of traffic jams or experience any problem that could arise. This is kind of details that I bringing into you for this range that we were using with a maximum speed of 80 kilometers per hour, which is something incredible for using into a city. That is, even taking into account an ambulance into the city would never reach more than 50, 60 kilometers per hour. What are our challenges for urban air mobility? Well, first we have to consider that even if we're at the municipal level, we have a national regulation. We have the AESA, which is our aerial security state agency that regulates aspects such as air transport, air navigation, airport security, as well as drone use in Spain. So anything flying in the Spanish skies has to be controlled by the AESA. So that's why we need to focus and work with them. But AESA is not responsible for the urban air mobility itself. So it's like our police for the skies, that they are not promoting this use. That's not their role. I mean, they can help us, but we need to focus on them. And this AESA, of course, they have to use the EU regulation that is more and more becoming popular for all users. But we also need to know this classification of UAS, the different license, the permits of similar certification. So AESA is our key role, our target, to know what they are leading with the EU But our target as local agent is to promote these uses. Flight operation category is defined by national regulation in 2024, as ISA is considering, well, open category, which is the risk is very low. There are 3 subcategories, like A1, A2, and A3. We have a specific category, which the risk is considered to be medium, that they require an operational authorization. Of course, they have to be under ISA, which is, as I told you, a national regulation, so it's not under our municipal level, which is normal because they are, as I told you, the police of the skies. And we have the 3rd certified category, which is higher risk category, that they require certification of both the US and the operator as a remote pilot license. So this is the category that we need to focus and work to promote these operational functions, not only for hospitals, for police, but to go deeper into it. We have examples of requirements and restrictions for operating different UAS according to their classification and flight operation in open category as published by ISA. I'm showing you the table that summarizes the new aspect introduced in the regulation in 2024. This helps operators understand the new regulation and impact on their operation. So this is the table that we are using with the categories, as you can see, with the C, and we have the restriction where are considered to be flying. So this is the law itself that we need to comply. But as I'm telling you, this is just a regulation. I mean, not just. This is what we have to follow, but this is not something to promote. That's what some people are confused. Still, I see just on the media that it looks like the police is not promoting the transportation. I mean, ISA is doing a great role in controlling the air, but that's what we need to promote at the urban areas, which is the cases that we will need it more. But what are the challenge? Again, we have more general limitation for drone flight imposed by ISA. And these are some of them, like never exceed 120 meters altitude in flight, do not fly within 8 kilometers of any airport, aerodrome, or controlled airspace. I'm bringing you the attention for that because our airport, Madrid City Airport, Barajas, Adolfo Suárez, is inside the municipality of Madrid. 80% of the airport and all facilities, just two small parts of the airport are outside of municipality. So this means half of the city, half of the municipality is affected by the airport itself. So this is something I'm bringing you the attention for this, as it is important to consider that this is not a free flying area. And this is bringing some specific challenge. And the 4th thing I'm bringing to you is the liability insurance is compulsory. As I'm telling you, you must have an insurance policy that covers civil liability against third parties for damage that may be caused by a flight, whether recreational or professional. And it's also compulsory for drones weighing less than 250 grams. This is the register US operator registration that ISA is controlling under the EASA scope. And this is something we also need to focus and never forget any kind of work that we're doing with the drones. So these challenges are something that we really need this regulation, but this is bringing some kind of challenge and specific problems to make drone industry to grow faster in the city. Another general limitation for drone flight imposed by ANA is that we need to have a flight-proof identification, which is the license plate. That is, of course, something to be controlled and protect the right to privacy of individuals who may appear in the images. Because we know after some different questions posed by universities or by media that people are aware of their privacy. That is something that everybody knows, that a drone can have a camera, and different to the police helicopters where everybody could see the police or policia logo written, With the only problem with the drones is that they are so small that people are not aware who is flying that drone. What is it for? So that's something we also need to be aware or give this information. Another lack of clear and effective regulation of drone on local level is first, as I was telling you that our airport, we have Madrid City in the middle of the map. Our airport is inside the municipality, and we have so many regulation and control drone areas where the license or authorization is needed. So that is not helping to develop a clear industry inside the city. I clearly understand that. I'm not talking against anything, but that's something that we need to be aware of that. At least the NAIRE, which is the one controlling the skies along AESA, but NAIRE is the one with aeronautical navigation, who is controlling the aircrafts not to have a collision with the drones. At least they have this good platform, or also they made an app. So anywhere you're flying, you will instantly know where you are. And even some drones, many drones, even private ones, you can upload this. Sorry for that. You can upload this map to know which limitations you have, so that when you're flying, you can have the alerts for that. What are the biggest challenges for local regulation? Well, some lack of collaboration mechanisms for joint management of airspace, having so many different regulations from European, national, regional, and then we are locals, is also kind of hard to understand by people. We are not a central state. We are like almost a federal state, not called federal, but almost, which is always making kind of bureaucracy harder for citizens. We have safety issues that some problems may arise when somebody get a new from a private user of drone, and then the media is just probably making a chaos. We also have privacy uses, and it can be flying by a private person and collecting illegal data collection, as you can know. And well, we have three more, which is developing of unmanned traffic management systems, which could be the best solution to avoid conflict. We have the fifth one, available of adequate infrastructure, such as drone ports, charging station, and designated takeoff and landing areas. That is one of the keys that we want to implement in Madrid. But thinking, not just making an infrastructure, but thinking of these previous matters I was telling you. And last but not least in this agenda is training and certification for drone operators and the integration of drone operations management. Up to date, we have some schools for drone areas, but these are more into regulation and Vasilis, everything right, yeah?
Yeah, just a few minutes, please.
Okay, yeah. We are on track. Don't worry. What are the next steps that we can not only talk about regulation, but we can also have collaboration with EU funding projects like Muse, Maya, that you probably know. This is always helping to make people feel attached to the drone industry. And the potential of urban air mobility is the reduction in air and noise pollution in comparison with traditional mobility concept. And with a correct framework in place of the city, we can promote innovation in this sector. And one of the first steps, as I was telling you with the ordinance, was the creation of the Urban Air Mobility Commission that started in January 2024, where my Director General, we are working into it. So this was the first meeting of the commission, which was in the media, at least in Madrid region and in Madrid city, that is bringing the attention of the media. This is how it's composed by our deputy mayor, and we also want to bring the national administration and the regional administration. So this is as it is working. These are the responsibilities, bringing collaboration, study the urban air mobility, and topics to be considered: security and control, infrastructure, and technological infrastructure, where the city has a lot to say. So these are the next steps, and this is the most important thing about the Urban Air Mobility Commission. The first one is the regulatory working group. As we are an administration, we are always expert on the regulation, but we need to bring all the European, national, regional, and local analyzing and getting in touch with the private sector to see the lack of regulation, or maybe sometimes it might be too much regulated. As it can happen with other fields like agriculture, as you've seen, there are some strikes with that. We want to be aware that regulation is not making impossible to fly. That would be not the scale. We also have security working group, operation working group, and these two levels, we also need the private sector. That's what we are inviting some private companies, especially from Madrid, from Spain, and from Europe, so that they can give us the ideas and the experiences of what was well done, what has been not so well done. And these two more, infrastructure working group, we are DG for infrastructure, so we need that. We are responsible on the land of the city of Madrid, and taking into account something today has to be considered, the environment as citizen working group. We cannot forget what the citizens and what the environment has to be taken care of. So, Vasilis, this is probably the most important slide, and that's why it is the last one. So thank you very much. And I don't know if you have any questions.
Yes, we will answer all of them. Thank you very much, Pedro. Just a quick recap, what you have shown, especially at the end, with the different challenges and the aim of the Commission. You highlighted one of the challenges, which is about the lack of coordination mechanism. I mean, in practice, we have been discussing before that the regulation, the use-based regulation, actually encourages for this type of engagements to happen, this coordination mechanism. It's ongoing work. It will take some time. Yesterday, I was in an event in Madrid organized about UEM, and I had the chance to exchange also with the Civil Aviation Authority, that they were describing the efforts to create this coordination mechanism at different levels of governance as per the regulation. So I think you will have the opportunity now with the commission you established, and I think it's a great initiative to show how from the local perspective you take the initiative to address the topic you mentioned. How do we integrate the air and the ground? How do we take the responsibilities from the ground towards the air? So I think the work you did here, it will be a type of the way to do it, and encourage other cities to consider to take this initiative. Already, I know some of our cities trying to do something like that. You did it at a larger scale. So I think there are a lot of things to learn from here, and to relate this to the existing regulations as you highlighted. So let's go to our next presentation, which is from UK. Simon from Innovate UK is with us. UIC2, when it was first established, had also members from UK. We still have members, not always very active. One of the most active today is the Oxfordshire County, and Simon will give us a view of the overall situation in UK, and perhaps he can make any mentions to Oxfordshire in case applicable to his speech. Thank you very much, Simon, and we're very happy to have you with us.
Thank you, Vasilis, and good afternoon, everyone. Very, very happy to be with you. I will share my screen. Is that visible? So that's okay?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So, yes, Simon Masters. I work for UK Research and Innovation, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our activities that are going on in the UK. And I should say before I forget that actually our approach is going to be a bit different to what you've heard from previous presenters, in that we have taken mostly a national approach to future aviation, and not a city or a regional approach. And perhaps I'll explain a little bit about why that is as we go through. So firstly, a little bit about the organisation I work for. So I work for UK Research and Innovation, and part of that is Innovate UK. We are part of the UK government's Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, and we act as the UK government's innovation agency. So supporting R&D, business-led R&D, but also with strong inputs from universities and research institutes and across a wide range of industry sectors. And as I say, our mission is there for you to read. So the program I work on is called the Future Flight Challenge. It was launched in early 2019 and it will run until March of 2025. And really what sets this program apart from other government funded programs that we've had is that it actually focuses on future aviation systems. For us, that means mostly it's drones, it's advanced air mobility, eVTOL operations, and increasingly we're looking at electrification of aviation in terms of infrastructure and also hydrogen and how hydrogen might become one of the energy sources or fuel sources in the future. And one of the other things we do is actually we don't just focus on the vehicles themselves, we focus on how we develop the wider ecosystem that those vehicles will operate in the future. And so our approach is to do that by creating and encouraging people to think about challenging real world use cases. So how will these vehicles be used in the future? And indeed we say the future, but the future is very much now for some of these technologies. What that required us to do is to actually look outside the traditional aviation and aerospace industry to bring in a lot of expertise and skills and work with people who maybe did not think they were part of this community. Perhaps they didn't think they had anything to contribute to aviation, and actually we found they very much do. So whether that's in digital systems, whether that's in software development, infrastructure, social science, all these sorts of things, we've brought people together to do that. And at the core of what we do, we've tried to make our program sort of people-based. We're recognizing that transport is very much something that all of us take part in some way, shape or form. And so we need to understand the social benefits and social desirability as well as the economic and technology cases. So about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, we published our roadmap. This is an extract from it. I think it's just to sort of show the breadth of some of what we're doing and what our thinking was. I say we're taking that use case approach, looking at how new forms of aviation could operate. I think this was on our 2030 vision. So looking at how drones and eVTOLs could serve our communities in the future, whether they're urban or more regional or indeed more remote locations. And we had a lot of feedback. When we issued this, we knew that this was not the right answer or the wrong answer. It was just something for discussion. And actually, the main benefit we got was the large number of people who commented, who said, no, that's wrong, that's right. What about this? We learned a lot from that and really helped to sort of drive the conversation forward and get people to start thinking about what this might look like in the future. It's very hard to put our program onto one slide, so I've tried to do this here, and I won't talk about all of these in detail. At the core of the program, and then the sort of the pink parts, and this is where most of the money that we have goes. These are our collaborative research and development projects. This is where we provide direct funding to businesses, to researchers, and end users to deliver R&D. And to sort of develop those new technologies and those new approaches, with the aim that later this year or very early into next year, the remaining sort of 15 or so of those projects will be delivering multi-vehicle sort of system demonstrations, and some of them will be carrying out sort of actual use cases with customers, which we're very excited to see. But around that, we've recognised that we can't just fund the technology and end up with a lot of nice shiny toys that we can't use. So we are working with regulators, so the Civil Aviation Authority in the UK, but also working with the British Standards Institute, and recognising that standards in some ways can be as important as regulation moving forward, and the creation of standards gives confidence to industry that there's something they can invest in, and that there is some certainty and some clarity of thought on sort of key technical topics. And all sorts of other things. So I won't go through all of these, but we've been working on skills and also on finance and scale up. How do we help these businesses and startups in the future? We can't always give them government funding to progress, so we have to help them to find other forms of investment and help them to kind of scale and grow their businesses so they can be successful in the future. So some examples of what we're doing. We'll talk about drones first and then move on to eVTOL. So our drone projects, they tend to fall into this sort of last mile delivery, sort of smaller drones, or increasing the kind of longer range middle mile type ones. So the two larger drones you can see in the bottom half of the screen sort of typify that. So looking at how logistics networks can be enhanced by the use of drones that can carry 100 kilograms plus, and people talking about 1,000 nautical miles range. Some of that has yet to be proven, but we're very excited to be working with some of these companies to show how this could be done and how this can transform logistics networks in the UK. And in the bottom right, and this is quite a recent photo, so our partnership with Wind Racers, the UK drone company, has been making great progress, and actually as a different use case, their aircraft is currently at one of the British Antarctic Survey sites down near the South Pole. They shipped the drone down there last year, and they are now flying in support of scientific research, so carrying out research that's normally done by quite an old twin turboprop aircraft. I think it might be an Islander aircraft that's very expensive to operate, requires pilots, and is quite polluting. And so they're looking at how a drone could carry out a number of those scientific missions and really sort of help them to reduce their emissions, but also reduce costs and support the sort of scientific work that goes on down there. And the other one, and I know previous speakers have mentioned this as well, so it's obviously a common theme here, is that we're very interested in working with the use of drones and medical use cases. We did some work on this during the COVID-19 pandemic, where drones were seen as a good way to reduce human-to-human contact and a way of sort of supplementing medical supply chains. And that really started it all. And there's now a massive interest across our National Health Service in using drones. Inevitably, the medical people want to fly the most expensive and high value products, which tend to be chemotherapy drugs and cytotoxins. These tend to also be the sorts of medical products that our regulator does not like to be flown in drones. So one of the key things we're working on at the moment is looking at what degree of protection is required and frankly, how big and strong a box do you need in your drone? Now, obviously, as with anything that flies, the bigger and heavier you make the box, the less you can actually carry in terms of payload. So that's one of the key considerations we're looking at the moment from a safety point of view, is how much protection do you need around the medical goods that you are transporting. From the eVTOL side, this is one of our projects that finished about 18 months ago, which was based in Coventry, in sort of the Midlands area of the UK. On the left, this was the artist's impression of what their vertiport might look like. On the right is actually what they made, so it looks a little bit less, shiny, but that's often true of many sort of artists' impressions. This actually was only a temporary structure. It was taken down afterwards, but the point of this was to show that you could build a structure. This was actually located next to the main train station in Coventry. And the project was done with a company called Urban Airport, who are very much a sort of architecture and civil engineering type company, but they worked with Supernal, the eVTOL company, to look at what sort of access they would need for their aircraft, how could you operate it, what sort of ground facilities would you need, and also how could you coordinate the flights of drones alongside eVTOL aircraft as well. So a huge amount was learnt from that. And I know it's put all of those who took part in a great place to look at this, and we are continuing working with Coventry City Council actually, and Vasilis, to your previous point, noticing that Coventry is in the next region across from Oxfordshire County Council, so I know there are some potential sort of collaborative areas being explored there in terms of how those regions of the UK could work together and share the knowledge they've got, because I think it's not going to be the case that eVTOLs will operate in one part of the UK and not the other. So they're clearly different regions are going to have to work together to work out how they could have flights between them and understand from different local authorities, are they on the same sort of approach to how they can do that and how they can coordinate that. The other main advanced air mobility project we have is with Vertical Aerospace and a whole host of companies. I won't name them all down there, but this is looking at actually airport transfer. So how do you fly people into airports? They've picked one of the busiest airports in Europe, in London Heathrow Airport, and their goal for later this year is to fly the vertical aerospace aircraft from a location in Oxfordshire to at a purpose-built sort of vertiport into London's Heathrow Airport. This has a number of challenges. Firstly, the aircraft itself is still under development, so we're working with Vertical Aerospace to understand the timelines for their aircraft, but also from a regulatory point of view, from an airspace point of view, flying a relatively new aircraft type into controlled airspace around one of Europe's busiest airports has led to some hard conversations, and we're not at this point entirely clear where the aircraft is going to land, but it will land somewhere within the sort of Heathrow Airport perimeter, and will demonstrate, the potential for transporting passengers, into major transport hubs. So that is, there's a lot of hard work going on, and it's one of those projects where actually, until it actually happens, it's quite hard to see all the work that's going on in support of this. But we're very, very much looking forward to that later this year. And then the third and final project I'm going to talk about is in the far top right of the United Kingdom, in Scotland, an area with lots of mountains and lots of islands, and so it's an area where the use of drones and eVTOL aircraft is actually really important, and actually can really you can see how it can improve people's lives in terms of their connection. It can make sure they get deliveries. It can make sure they can get even things like the mail, that their postal deliveries can arrive in the same way that those who live in more connected areas of the country get. So this is testing the Arc Aerosystems drone. It is one of the largest drones. It does prompt the question, when is it a drone? Is it an eVTOL? It could potentially carry passengers. I think we won't talk about definitions today, but it does start to create those questions around whether the labels we put on these vehicles are helpful or not. But for the moment, they're looking at this sort of middle mile delivery model. And as a number of these islands actually have runways on them, then that gives them the opportunity to sort of take off and land. And as I say, provide that support. And one of the key things they have done is they've done it from a kind of community approach. So they've gone to the local communities and said, what do you need? What would be helpful? It's not that we've decided we're going to deliver pizzas or coffee or whatever it might be, but what is actually useful for you as people who live in some of these less connected regions. And that's been really fascinating to see how the local people have sort of responded to that and really embraced the opportunities for these new technologies. And the final thing I just talk about is some of the wider work we're doing. So we've done some work with the consultants PwC, looking at the economics of it. I know that people have many different opinions. There are many consultants in the world, and many have different views on this. So this is just an opinion. It's one that we paid PwC to do for us. But I think if nothing else, it sort of starts to generate the conversation around, what sort of passengers do you need over what sort of range to make actually some of the economic numbers add up and make it an attractive form of transport, and something that could be as cheap or cheaper than alternatives. We also did another study that was looking more specifically at bits of the UK, and that's just looking at potentially the number of travellers that could be done, the amount of emissions that could be reduced. I'm happy to share the link to the full report, because this on its own looks nice, but it doesn't tell the whole story. But it did look at sort of up to 390 potential routes in the UK that could benefit from eVTOL transport, and also if those were adopted, again, what are the benefits in terms of to people, to individuals, but also reduction in emissions and things like that. And then finally, in terms of public perception, again, this is something that others have picked up on. We've done some work with the University of Birmingham and their social science team to start to kind of look at that and to do some public consultation work. And again, this is just one extract of this. It's really interesting. Some of the answers are what we expected, and some of them are really not. And I know there's a danger of sort of small sample sizes and getting too focused on numbers, but some of the findings are actually quite useful, and we've shared them across our government so that they can look at this in the future as to how they can, help to support the introduction of these new technologies. And so finally, a few quick reflections. So we are very much a national programme, and we have deliberately taken that approach. But increasingly, I think we need to find a local focus, and it's really fascinating to hear from the other presenters today about how you've taken a more local approach and some of what you've learned and found from that, and also with the UIC2 taking that sort of approach. We find that really interesting, and I think there's a lot we can learn. As a sort of government agency, we've recognised that actually we have to do this, but it has to be a partnership between government and industry at the moment. It's still an emerging industry, and I think government support is needed, but we also need industry to work with us to develop that. And one of the key things we found actually is competitors collaborating. So we've had a number of eVTOL companies are working together to help build the market. Their view is we have to work with our competitors now, otherwise the market won't exist in the future. So they are very much aware that they need to collaborate at this stage, and they may not in the future, but they need to work together. And that's been really refreshing to find that spirit of collaboration. And also bringing the public into the system design. So we are trying to work with the public. We are trying to acknowledge and take their views so that it'll ease the sort of the introduction. And finally, I guess one of the reasons I'm here is we're very keen to foster international partnerships and engagement. We're very proud of what we've done, but we recognise others are doing equally good work, and there's a lot we can learn, and I'm very happy to share what we're doing. And ultimately, I guess, and why we're here, why we're all here, is to sort of build this industry and sort of inspire the next generation of people to sort of participate in it and to use it in the future.
Thank you
that was my
very
last
much.
slide. Yeah, thank you
very much for giving the national perspective also, and already you highlighted. Even if you may appear as being like innovate and more technology driven, you have highlighted and demonstrated that there are a number of initiatives that try to bring the bottom up to see what people really want and to make it more citizen needs driven, what is happening, which is admittedly not an easy thing to do, because still we are in a technology push domain. That's why I think what we discuss here today is quite important in order to give the balance. Also, we have recognized within the UIC2 that just taking only the technology or only the city perspective is not enough. You need to bring the stakeholders together. It's what you highlighted about having the industry, the universities, and the cities. And this is also what Hamburg highlighted about bringing the different players together. So we have seen this is happening or trying to happen. And before I will refrain from asking questions to you because we ran a little bit out of time, but I think it was worth to listen to everyone. Instead of asking questions, I would like to ask Lydia if we have any top 3 questions, perhaps, from the Q&A from our audience that we could address to our audience, to our panelists, sorry.
Yes, so there are indeed a few questions. I see that some of them, they have comments, so people were participating, so thank you for that. I think maybe one and two that could be related is a little bit more on this technical part, but more looking into the future, because there was a mention of CCAM and also ITS, so kind of how the drones and eVTOLs could be connected, and even how these deliveries or overall the services can work with vehicles that are automated in the future. For me, maybe as from Ertico side and City Moonshot side, I think that might be a discussion that is yet I would call a little bit for the future, as we are now maybe focusing more on how to build this up in terms of policies, or at least from the city's concern that we have seen. But I would like to invite other presenters to maybe mention something, if there were already use cases, or if you have any ideas on that.
Perhaps you need to explain what the CCAM or ITS, because not perhaps everyone is familiar with.
Yes, that is my bad indeed. So intelligent transport systems, so in this case, maybe connections between drones, so drone to drone or drone to infrastructure that is already in place. For CCAM, so more specifically, they were talking about medical deliveries in automated ambulances. So any vehicle that is automated and how that can work with the drones, again, going back to the ITS part. So I don't know if there are already maybe some ideas from the city side. Yeah.
It's simple for people who perhaps are not familiar. It's about the backbone IT of smart mobility, right from the ground, and how this could be interlinked with the air. I think I saw Marta with the camera. Marta explained the approach in La Coruña, that in fact they need to integrate this as part of the ground system, right? And Enrique, I see here. So perhaps I would like to address our colleagues from La Coruña, and then I would like to hear also from Simon, from a more national perspective. how he would see this linkage. We have 5 minutes left, so let's try 2 minutes each, maximum.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. So, like Lydia said, this is something that is more towards the future, but there's definitely work that is happening on that topic. And when it comes to drone-to-drone or drone-through infrastructure, this is something that it's already being done. So in ITG, for instance, we have a drone box solution. So there is already communication drone to the drone safe box to have this operation automated. And of course, there is drone-to-drone communication also happening. This is something that we're working a lot with USpace and also from the USpace service provider. If you know what that is, because I know that maybe is going a bit too much into a technical conversation, but from the USpace service provider to the drone, there's also communication happening on that. But if we go into, I think what the question really asked, which is integration with other mobility systems, this is something that is still work in progress. But I think we're at the moment now where we start to really work on this. So there, maybe if you're familiar with Horizon Europe, this is one of the goals, several goals that are addressing this topic. So it's really something that is happening now. I think another key word for this is mobility as a service and how to integrate all of these different systems in one platform. It's a lot of work, but yeah, I cannot say what we're doing with the mobility systems and the ground because there's not too much at the moment, but it's gonna happen. I don't know if Enrique can.
Yeah, if I may complement just a
in.
few things very quickly. At the end, ground-to-ground communication, air-to-air communication, on infrastructure between drone on the systems are more or less being developed. But for me, the real challenge is how to deploy the system that will manage the air traffic and the system that are currently manage the ground traffic. And so far, the developments are isolated. So you go to a project or to an R&D initiative, and you see that your space is being developed in a isolated box with no connection to the ground, and similar to the ground development in smart cities. So at the end, the real challenge is how to create the interfaces between both, or even delete the whole interface to have just one tool in a city that is able to manage the whole traffic from scratch. This is one of the things that we are discussing with in A Coruña, to see, for example, how to integrate these drones in the control center for ground mobility with the police or something similar.
Thank you, Enrique. And it is one of the slides we have for many years within UIC2, when we saw the mass environment and the need to integrate the ground in the air. So we see that now it's becoming more a challenge that everyone is facing, and work has to start to be done on that. Simon, from your perspective on the international view, how do you see this? Is it something yet discussed, or you stay more on the aviation development?
No, it is something we are increasingly seeing from the communication point of view. You know, there are people looking to use 5G and other sort of mobile phone type technologies for communications, which causes some issues in terms of frequencies and how that may impact other frequency users. And we're increasingly seeing the use of drone swarms, and we have one group we are working with using a drone swarm for firefighting, which obviously requires fairly effective communication between drones, and they see that the drones would be able to work in tandem and not require too much input from the ground to do that. The other sort of application is the use of drones on ships, so being able to fly deliveries onto and off of ships, and how drones and communication systems can be able to interface with a ship, whether that's at anchor or actually on the way. And obviously, as a large maritime sort of trading nation, the UK is very interested in how drones can support our maritime sector, including things like, you know, offshore wind farm inspection and that sort of thing. But it's not I'm told, not as easy as it looks just to fly a drone around a wind farm. You have to be very careful about positioning and also being in contact with others, helicopters, other people who might be operating in that area.
Thank you for that. We cannot answer more questions, but I understand that there will be created a mini report, and any questions raised, we will answer there. So I hope the audience found this webinar of interest. if we have cities in the audience, I would encourage you to either join UIC2 to know more. You don't need to like drones, as I said before. You just need, hopefully from this discussion today, realize the stakes, why should be involved. And not only join UIC2, contribute also to the study of ERTICO, the city moonshot, which is a more generic mobility study with and the UM is just a part of it. With that, I will hand over to Lydia. Thank you very much for hosting UIC2 and supporting us here.
Yes, Vasilis, thank you for the support also that you have given us. And thank you, everyone, especially the speakers, but also the attendants for coming today. I hope, as Vasilis said, that you learned something from today. And as mentioned, we will publish an article and we will try to address the questions that we weren't able to. So again, thank you very much and have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.